This is the safe zone to be established on the border between Turkey and northeast Syria. According to the agreement, the U.S. and Turkey will rapidly address Turkey's security concerns. President Erdogan calls the area of northeast Syria a terror swamp. Establish a joint operations center to manage the safe zone, although it's unclear who will oversee this operation. And rename the safe zone a peace corridor. Negotiations took place under the shadow of invasion threats by Turkey's President Erdogan into this region. Erdogan's threats center on a new democracy called SANS, or the Self-Administration of Northeast Syria. For years, the group served as chief ally of the U.S. against ISIS.
What we have in the northeast of Syria is a political system that has provided peace for this region in Syria, and that has provided a vision for the region.
Syrian leaders like Bassam Itzhak worry this agreement threatens their new democracy. For example, the part that says every effort shall be made so that displaced Syrians can return to their country. He fears they will include Islamist groups who have been Erdogan's allies.
Basically, it's gangs who are mostly were either members of ISIS or members of Nusra. So it's basically defeating ISIS in one place and then bringing them under a rebrand name. It will be a total surrender by the U.S. to the pressure of Turkey and to the pressure of the ruling party of Turkey, which is an Islamist extremist party.
Syrian Christian groups have reached out to U.S. leaders to intervene on their behalf with President Trump. Many believe 100 years after the Armenian genocide, the 100,000 Christians in the region are once again at risk.
From the perspective of the Christians who live in northeast Syria, the old bully is following them into where they came to safety under the pretext of a safe zone.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have said before, and I'll say it again, the answer is to have a Trump manifesto that declares it is the intention of the United States of America to recognize a homeland for the Kurds, and there should be an independent Kurdistan that would fill the void that's there right now. It would be part of northern Iraq, it'd be part of northern Syria, and it would encompass the 36 million Kurds in that area. And then in turn, the United States could sell them arms or give them arms and warn anybody else against coming in against them. That would be the buffer. It would take care of Iran on the south, and it would take care of Turkey on the north, and it would also take care of the Russians. It is the ideal solution, and it's something to be prayed for. And this poor little enclave of Christians is going to be wiped out by Turkey. They will be destroyed unless we move actively to get something done about it. Well, CBN's Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is joining us now from Jerusalem. And Chris, well, what is Erdogan's strategy and what's the Trump administration trying to accomplish?
Well, before I get to that, Pat, I would say what you're saying about a declaration, on behalf of a Kurdish homeland. I asked a Middle East expert just the other day about that. He saw there was a brilliant idea. And as you say, they would be a buffer against Iran from the east, from Turkey expanding the Assad regime as well as Russia. And they would be a natural U.S. ally. In terms of Erdogan's strategy right now, I think he wants to have a demographic invasion. And if you look at the criteria of this agreement, they talk about refugees coming in. Well, there's 3.6 million refugees in Turkey right now, and the people in northeast Syria want to make sure all of those 3.6 million refugees come in. They believe that he wants to make make northeast Syria a pro-Turkey area, and this is one step towards that goal.
Well, what is he going to do to the Christians? Does this look like another genocide?
Well, that's the concern for many of the Christians, and Pat, and here's why. They have two history lessons they have to look back to. March 2018, Turkish forces allied with Islamic jihadist forces came into the city of Afrin. This is in eastern Turkey. They displaced thousands of people. They burned churches. They hunted down Christians. And so these are the same kind of jihadi forces that they are concerned Erdogan is trying to bring into northeast Syria. So that's their short-term memory. Long-term memory is they have many of the people in northeast Syria. And when I was there, Pat, not too long ago, I heard this over and over again. These are the ancestors of the people who fled the Armenian genocide in 1915. So their grandparents had to flee. They came to northeast Syria for safety and refuge. And now they are concerned that the bully, as Bassam Itzhak said in our story, is going to pursue them once more and threaten a genocide against the Christians in northeast Syria. There's about 100,000 of them.
When you were there, what struck you? What stood out in your mind as you met with those people?
Well, Pat, it was an amazing story, and I think it's one of the most underreported stories in the whole of Middle East. You actually found a democracy. To me, it was a revelation of how well-formed this democracy was. They have a representative form of government. They mandate in the charter that they started in 2014 that 40% of the representatives have to be women. They have religious freedom. They not only allow people to worship and practice their religion, they allow people to change their religion. Now, in the middle of the Islamic world, that is unprecedented. So people can actually get out of Islam freely, and that's unprecedented in this part of the world. And another thing, Pat, that really struck me is that many people there, and Bassam Itzhak we saw in our story, really believe that what's happening in northeast Syria is prophetic. If you look at Isaiah chapter 19, it talks about a holy highway between Assyria, Israel, and Egypt, and they believe this democracy, this freedom that's happening there in northeast Syria is the precursor to fulfillment of what Isaiah wrote 2,500 years ago.
Well, may it happen. Well, there's a new Pentagon report that says ISIS is reforming in Syria. Have you got any word on that?
Well, you know that the physical caliphate of ISIS has been defeated just a few months ago. That happened in southeastern Syria, but the ideology has not stopped. And you have cell groups, sleeper cells in northeast Syria right now that are part of ISIS, and you have those in other parts of Syria as well. So the ideology really hasn't gone away, the physical caliphate, and that's why many people say in northeast Syria, we need to make sure that this democracy holds, that they can be the ones, like they have since 2015, to ally themselves with the United States and stamp out ISIS for good.
Trump wants to pull troops out. You can't blame him for wanting to do that. But what happens if we pull out prematurely?
Well, if we pulled out prematurely, I think what would happen would be the opposite of what you said at the very beginning. Northeast Syria is a buffer against Iran. It prevents Iran from having a land bridge all the way to the Mediterranean. It prevents the expansion of Erdogan, who has this brand of Muslim Brotherhood Islam. It prevents the Assad regime and Russia from taking over that part of the region. So if the U.S. presence comes out of there, you really could have a catastrophe. You could have much greater chaos in the Middle East. And I know Americans may ask, why should we care about this part of the region, part of the Middle East, and this part of the world? That's why. It really prevents many of the bad actors in this region from expanding. It really is a natural ally. It really does, for U.S. interests, this is a key ally. And what the Syrian leaders are telling me is that they really want an ironclad guarantee by the United States that they will stand with him during this crisis.
Chris, thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen,